Hello and welcome to Team Franco Bodybuilding Podcast. Hoping everyone is doing fantastic out there, getting it done both in and out of the gym. Before I get started, again, just want to thank everyone. This year, 2026, is off to an awesome start, and I do appreciate all the new subscribers and listeners and the current feedback that I get. As you know, I'm always trying to try different topics. Some are good, some are bad. It is what it is. Just like in life, we're always trying to learn new things, attempt new things. And if it doesn't work out, we get feedback. And that's kind of like the topic I want to talk about today, where I think I came up with this idea. And if you see in the title, I'm going to talk about the 15-foot rule. I don't know if it was about 5 or 6 years ago. I mentioned it to some of the students in my posing class, and I run with it all the time. Just about every single class that I give, or I do personal instruction. And I think the 15-foot rule has also evolved. And it's just not for when you're on stage, and the meaning behind it I will get to shortly. But it became almost like a metaphor on learning not to sweat the small stuff. And that is not sweating the small stuff on or off the stage. And that's why this podcast is specifically talking about contest prep and how I like to address the 15-foot rule to those who come to my posing class, for my personal clients that compete. It's something that maybe you can learn from. And it's also anecdotal, what I've learned over the years, where not sweating the small stuff is something that most competitors have trouble with, but those who do follow that, they usually have a lot of success. Now, believe me, I get it. Some of us are just high strung, type A. I think I have that a little bit. And I do believe you need that to excel, especially if you are a physique competitor. So, the idea, how it got started, is when you're on stage and what the judges can see. I came up with that's about 15 feet away. Okay, so this is where the genesis of all this began, where the only people that can see you are 15 feet or further away. That's the judges, the audience, and when they're watching you on stage, they see the overall shape. They can see your conditioning, your balance, your confidence, your stage presence. But what I like to remind people, what they can't see, is slight imperfections in your tan. Maybe your veins aren't popping out in the morning. Maybe there are, one side is a little bit different in symmetry, or your tan is off. Did I say that already? Or maybe you are not filled out as much. You get what I'm saying? I mean, even my wife who tans, she'll get people that come back, their tan looks great, and they got a teeny little smudge. Well, you're right on top of it. Or you're on stage and you've been so focused on looking at your abs for the last 6 months as progress, but maybe they're just not as tight. But you know what? That's where the 15-foot rule comes into play, because all those little things that you've been dissecting yourself, micromanaging your physique, the judges can't see. They can't see what you see. Okay? And that is part of the reason why I want you guys not to sweat the small stuff. Only because when you worry so much, even before you go on stage, that's going to affect hormones, your cortisol levels. You can look flatter. You can hold more water. I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. So that is the genesis of the 15-foot rule, don't sweat the small stuff. But it's also true because, when you practice your posing over and over again, I focus on repetitions. I want my clients to do reps. I tell everyone taking my classes to do reps. But you know what? Every single turn or half turn could be off a little bit, and you really shouldn't sweat that either, because the judges aren't going to see it. they're basically waiting for you to get into that pose, so therefore they can judge you properly standing next to someone else. So you have to believe me and trust me. Don't sweat the small stuff, because the 15-foot rule is real. Now, again, the real problem doesn't start on the stage. It starts usually weeks to months before and during your prep. Because as I said earlier, competitors, as you know it, and I'm guilty of it, will micromanage every visual detail. And I see that sometimes even with clients when they're upset that their photos may not look as good because of the bathroom lighting is different, or there's not sunny out. Again, it's not necessary, and they obsess over their own photos all the time. Again, don't sweat the small stuff. They'll panic over daily fluctuations. And if you follow my philosophies or some of my social media posts, I touch upon this, because body weight fluctuations are going to happen, whether if it's too much or too little sodium, fiber changes, sleep changes, stress, whatever. Having your period, all these little things are all going to change your body weight, and that's why you always look at the trend. And what these things do, all the micromanaging, where it will build up over time, where you should just be focusing on your diet, your training, sleep, daily life stuff, repeat. But when you constantly micromanage and worry about these little things, it's going to create unnecessary stress. It's going to create more fatigue, more emotion swings, and even loss of confidence during the whole process. So that's why I'll also remind clients, when they micromanage too much, I'll remind them to zoom out. Instead of looking at the last couple of days where you could be stalled or whatever the case may be with your diet and just not losing body fat, zoom out. Look at the past week. Look at the past month and see the work that you're putting in. It really comes down to productive versus unproductive stress. And this is all stemming from the 15-foot rule. This is the big, powerful distinction that I want you to understand. And things that you want to focus on is hitting your macros consistently, training with intent, progressive overload, practicing your posing, managing sleep and recovery. It's just trusting and following the plan, where the little stressors of this show day can actually backfire. Like, your tan is off. Oh, that person is much leaner or bigger than me. My abs they were actually sharper a couple of days ago. I didn't get pumped enough. The vascularity all of a sudden disappeared. I mean, yeah, all those things can happen, but in the moment, you rarely can change them. And what you got to do is just simply move forward, because if you don't, you're going to be drained, and it's going to drain your energy, and that's not what you want contest show day. So again, from my point of view as a coach and a promoter, judges are basically there to look at the entire package. They're looking at your symmetry, which is the balance, proportion of the muscles, the level of conditioning, depending on what division you're competing in, flow and confidence. They're not going to be nitpicking the little things that you have been or possibly did, weeks leading into the show. That I can guarantee you, because again, they are, let's say it again, 15 feet away from you. You have your tan, bright lights. They're looking at the basic things that I just covered. When an athlete looks calm, composed, it shows. And that's one of the big take-home points that I used in my last posing class. I always talk about a few things that I constantly repeat when I do an intro to my class. You want to learn how to pose for your physique. Obviously your division, but your physique and your structure. You want to build up the stamina, obviously, so you can hold the poses on stage to make them look like it's effortless. But the third component is composure. looking like you've done this before, like a walk in the park. And I think that stems from, practicing your posing, having confidence in yourself, but knowing that the judges are 15 feet away and you're not sweating the small stuff. And it applies to life, guys. This is when it becomes bigger than bodybuilding. And this is something that I think if you also pay attention to during your prep, because, you work out for an hour a day, you're focusing on your diet, you're focusing on your sleep, but you also got to realize that in general life, people are not analyzing the way that you are always thinking. Most of the criticism is internal anyway. And when you try to control too much, it's going to create anxiety. I believe trusting the process, whether you have a coach or not, is going to build the confidence that I speak of that's going to bring the composure on stage. So, whether if it's competing, fitness goals, career, relationships, it doesn't matter. 15 feet is 15 feet. And when you stress out, it doesn't deserve your mental energy. Control what actually moves the needle, guys. Let go of the things that lives in your head, because too much anxiety, worrying about and micromanaging is not going to get you where you want to go. This is something that is like near and dear to my heart, where I truly believe that it all begins when you're on stage. Understanding that the 15-foot rule is real, where you shouldn't be micromanaging because the judges are looking at your physique as a whole. They can tell if you have the muscle. They can tell if you're lean enough. They can tell if you're confident with the posing. But it goes a little bit deeper, and I'm going to close with this, because once you have this attitude, when you begin your prep, not sweating the small stuff and micromanaging as much, because to me, if you're sticking to your diet and you have discipline with your diet, your cardio, your training, everything, why overconsume yourself with the little things? Because it's going to cause more anxiety. It's going to set you back even more. So sometimes we need to do a couple of preps. That's for sure. Where I've had preps where I overanalyzed, and I had preps where I was much laid back. And I've said this a few times on the podcast. The last time I competed, I was crushing it. I could say it. I was crushing it for my age and where I felt, but I was more relaxed because I was focusing on the day that's right in front of me. I had the show date, but I literally stayed and looked down at my feet and this is where I'm at this moment. And everything's going to take care of itself because the days are going to stack up, accumulate, and I know I'm going to crush it. You're going to hit plateaus. Sometimes you may revert and start overanalyzing, but you know what? You get it out of your head quickly. So I'm going to wrap this up. Hopefully it's been helpful, a little bit on the shorter side, but this is something that I really, really feel. It's something that I drive home with my clients and those who reach out to me on social media, and also my platforms out. I just try to put this out for you guys, because ultimately bodybuilding is a lifestyle. Bodybuilding is plural, where it's something that we're going to be learning and doing for the rest of our lives, as long as we're on the right track. If you want to hit me up for coaching, love to hear from you. fitfranco@verizon.net. My email is the best way. I have a website still, teamfrancobodybuilding.com. Check me out on the socials. I'll talk to you next time.